So imagine driving down the street in any town, in any city, in any state, and seeing, somebody sitting at the bus stop with bags, clearly homeless, maybe haven't taken a shower in a while, and the impression that you might get if you put any thought into it at all. The reality is that that person likely has been homeless for multiple years, that they woke up on cold concrete. If they're lucky, they had a sleeping bag. Depending on the state, it would determine how cold they were that night. They woke up, they were hungry. If they were lucky, they had enough change to go get a cup of coffee. If the coffee house would even let them in, they would obviously need to use the restroom. Where would they find one? And if they used a restroom outside, imagine the feeling somebody would have if they saw that, not understanding they had nowhere else to go. I don't think somebody chooses to use the restroom outside. And then imagine having to fly a sign, meaning having a sign that says, "Help me if you can," to get enough money to get something to eat that day. And then imagine having to do that again every night for 365 days.
The homeless population is very, very difficult to measure accurately. The best numbers tell us that in a pretty short time frame, in a 5 or 6 year window, the number of people who have become homeless in the United States across the country has increased by about 5 or 6%. Now we're seeing that that rate of increase is substantially higher on the West Coast, in Oregon, Washington, and in California, and we're also seeing this trend also into the Southwest. And it's particularly acute in California and in the Bay Area. While we're seeing the country's homeless population grow 6% in 6 years, in Alameda County, that has actually gone up from 57,000 homeless people in 2017 to almost 10,000 homeless people in 2022. And so that's about a 75% increase, which is much, much, much larger than what we're seeing on the national level.
Well, I think everyone cares about the crisis of homelessness in our community, whether you're directly affected or whether you live in this community are deeply concerned about the humanitarian crisis we see on our streets. And that's a concern I think that's shared by many people in the Bay Area. And so obviously, if you are directly impacted, you're housing insecure, or you're unhoused, it impacts you directly. But we have long-term residents who believe that Berkeley needs to do better, that it's not acceptable that we have 1,000 people on any given night who are living in our streets. And think about, a day like today when, temperatures are below 50 degrees and you're sleeping on the streets. Fortunately, we have a wide array of programs, including inclement weather shelter here at Old City Hall that's run by Dorothy Day House. We're grateful for all their work and their partnership. But it's not acceptable that we have people literally freezing on the street, and we need to do better as a community.
This has just been a problem ever since we lost our social safety net because of Prop 13. We just really have not enough services for people. And when you have coexisting problems like homelessness and drug addiction, or homelessness and mental health, those other problems just get worse by being homeless. So that's why housing first is critical, but it may not be enough.
You never know. You could be one paycheck away, or one illness, or one catastrophic life event away from becoming homeless. I know when I visited people who lived in our shelters, I see 70-year-old women who, due to hardship, ended up losing their housing and are now sleeping on the floor in a homeless shelter. You have people that literally have jobs, but they don't have housing because the cost of housing is so astronomical that they are living in a homeless shelter and then going to work every day and coming back. And so it's not just, there's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding about who are the unhoused in our community. There's a perception that, these are people who are, able-bodied, but are intentionally making the decision to live on the streets. It is a very diverse population. We have kids, we have families, we have seniors, people with disabilities. A growing number of our in-house are people that are over the age of 60, which is also deeply concerning.
How did I become homeless? Back in September of 2022, I lost my mom. We were living in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and life was good, all was well, working as a restaurant manager in San Francisco, and I lost my mom, tried to keep my head up, trying to persevere, work it through, power through. But there are those people that are able to knock things out of the park, and there are those that are not. I was not able to. I thought I was able to handle it. So in November, I quit my job. I knew that it was affecting me at work. I was evicted from my apartment, and just trying to figure things out.
One of the biggest lacks that we have are available services. So while we've introduced the special care unit, that is instead of the police coming when someone's having a mental health crisis, we send the special care unit if it's not a violent situation. It's great that they come because they're better able to calm people down. It preserves really expensive police resources for crime. But also, at the end of all that, where do they take people? What are we doing about the answer in the end? So we have situations where the problem is not our first response. The problem is our second answer. Where are we going to take people?
One of the things, something that's really hard right now in terms of comparing kind of Berkeley and other cities is, at least from what I see in Berkeley, is there's a smaller service community that I think seems to work like pretty well together. Like, I don't remember my time in San Francisco that there was as much coordination, and I can't really speak to why. Perhaps it's just a smaller community, perhaps there's other factors. So I see that as being one, I think, big difference. I do see that there's a real willingness, both from the city officials and from community, to try to find and fund like things that we know work, right? And so, like right now, for example, something that I think is great, and I can't say if other communities are doing, but I'm seeing, is that there's a real investment in trying to figure out how to support folks to shift who, again, have not traditionally gone into shelters, to really shift into some opportunity that's more, I would say, more dignifying, and then then having to stay outside as their only choice, and to do it based on what we do know people in those situations are often open and interested in. So I'm seeing this new funded model of trying to, buy and lease longer term kind of hotels with services that, I think is being built on success that I just haven't seen. That I hear from other people, they're like, wow, it seems like something's different. Like, why is it that Berkeley's numbers and the recent, point in time count have actually reduced and stayed about the same when the counties have increased? Like, what's Berkeley doing different?
I got hit, I was already homeless. And I stayed in storage for a couple of days until I came out here because of my brother kind of dragged me out here. And it was a rough time a little bit. It was kind of rough. And I don't got no mom, no daddy was out here with me, no auntie, no grandma. So it was kind of rough. I slept on People's Park too for a couple, like a whole year. Whew. Slept over there, sleeping in a tent, basing on friends. I knew basically about friends that out here. They expressed to me like, come to Dorothy House to get your services, you do laundry, showers. And basically to me, Dorothy Day House is a way of life. It's a way that you can make you step in becoming a better person.
Our nonprofit partners are really critical to our city's homeless response system because we cannot do it alone. While Berkeley spends roughly $30 million in general fund money on a variety of services to addressing homelessness, and that investment that Berkeley makes has increased dramatically in the 7 years that I've served as mayor, because we know that we need to really invest in all of the programs and solutions to address the needs of people experiencing homelessness and to end homelessness. And I think a lot of what Berkeley has done historically has been focused on a continuum of care, really focusing on trying to address the needs of people who are living on the streets, but not focused on how do we get them into permanent and stable housing. And we've really been working on trying to advance a housing first approach towards how Berkeley is responding to homelessness in our community. And unfortunately, the voters of Berkeley have consistently supported our commitment to addressing homelessness. And so that's why Berkeley has seen the impact that we've had. That's why we've been able to work to effectively reduce homelessness. And really at the core of that is our organizations like Dorothy Day House, which are really, they're on the front lines doing the work, working to directly interact with people every day, build trust, provide care, provide support. And I'll just say about Dorothy Day House, they have never wavered in their commitment of serving the neediest people in our community. And so whenever we needed to open up an emergency shelter or we have a new program, they've always stepped forward and volunteered and said, we're happy to work with the city to do this. I think their compassion, their dedication, their expertise has made such a huge impact on the lives of people in our community. And I just can't say how grateful I am to organizations like Dorothy Day House that are every single day working to provide care for some of the neediest people in our community and work to help provide a path to a better future. And we've been able, working in partnership with them, to get people into permanent housing and to help get people connected to jobs and help get people connected to the resources they need to be self-sufficient and to be supported. And that's incredible. And so every step of the way, in the past 7 years, Dorothy Day has always been there, working in partnership with the city and really helping thousands and thousands of people in our city, not just have a safe and warm place to sleep, but to have the care and compassion and support that they need.
One of the things that Berkeley is doing right is this partnership between the university and the local government and nonprofit agencies, as we've seen. And I think that Berkeley as an institution, the university and the local government very much understands that homelessness has a long history in this space, that it's a contested idea in many ways, and it's still, it's a situation that exists and that we must contend with and do so in a way that is as responsible as possible. And I see that through all the organizations that pop up, serving unhoused people here. And what I find striking about this is that there's a notion out there in the community, I think, that if you provide services that will increase the level of homelessness, but we're seeing that that's not occurring in a place like Berkeley. And I think that the underlying reason for that is this long-term commitment to solving this issue. And it's not something that's going to go away because an election cycle changes, for example. I think Berkeley, particularly UC Berkeley as an institution, has made a longer-term commitment to addressing homelessness, and we're seeing that. I think that there are real tangible outcomes to that. One thing that yes, Berkeley is able to do is to have eyes on the ground and to actually understand who's homeless, what their needs are, and what resources are in the community that can be linked. And I think that the city and the university have been very good at coordinating that with the nonprofits, and that's why we're seeing the crisis not as stark and not as staggering as it is growing in other spaces and other regions.
I'm a really big fan of Dorothy Day. It's kind of, and I don't know, I always think I'm a little tough around thinking of agencies and kind of thinking about what they do. But some of the things that I really appreciated about it, which I think is really hard for a nonprofit, it's really challenging for a nonprofit to figure out how to keep its heart at the center of their practice and alive, right, and communicate that out, both to community and to participants and to staff. And it seems like of the organizations I've seen, like that's something that they have valued and centered and kind of brought forward, which I think is so important. I think like tied to that is this conversation we've been having around community, that like, that's often not what's billed for in general or gets, is centered. And I feel like as an agency, they have made a very intentional effort to center in this idea of community, that's seeing that we can help individuals, and when we help kind of, individuals in community, there's so much more healing and strength that kind of forms. I also, I would say thirdly, maybe admire that seem to say, how can we help? And maybe beyond that, like, maybe we'll be at a meeting and the city will talk about, or a community partner, or will say, gosh, we're struggling with this. And I'll hear, Robbie from Dorothy Day say, oh, like, I think we can help with that, and I feel like that's kind of been like a tagline almost, from all of our meetings, is like, wanting to step in to fill those gaps. How can I help? And seeing that in practice, where there's gaps, saying, let's try this. Like, oh yeah, like how do we figure this out together? And, and how do we build on, bring what we do well, out to folks. And not every organization functions that way. And I have found, just in our work together, that they have done that. And if we can't help, let's figure out how we can, how we can make the connections to help. So I just, to me, that says a lot about an organization that, is obviously that's a challenge of like, you don't want to grow too much, you don't want to step into too many things, and yet is where they can is continuing to say, how can I help? And then actually doing it.
Dorothy Day was an exceptional person, and the books and what we read, they do her justice in terms of what she actually did or what she's known for, but the person, it just is mind-blowing that we don't hear more about her, or that we don't emulate more of her message. And she was very direct and very simple about if somebody's hungry, feed them. If they need clothing, give them clothes. Do what you can. I believe her thought was everybody should be of service. and do what they can to help others. I believe that as well, and I've always believed that. And this is exactly the message that we share amongst our staff at Dorothy Day House, is don't treat the program or don't treat the homelessness. Talk to the person, right? Work with the person, find out what their needs are, and meet those needs. And if we can't meet those needs, that's okay, but let's find somebody who can.
I became homeless because I lived in before an apartment in 2012, and I got a job, but I was evicted. I'm feeling so bad because never got an eviction, and that one was the first time. And I talked to the landlord. I went out to tell to the guys leave the house, but he told me it's too late, and he told me I need to leave the place. But I'm trying to keep an apartment, and I try to fight it with him in court. But I was in court almost like maybe 1 month. And finally, the owner gave me 3 months. But I'm looking in that time, I'm looking for other place, but I never found it. I found it, but then don't accept 2 persons in a room, and I can do anything about that. And we stay in the streets since that time.
Every individual in their situation is unique, so it's part of our jobs working with these folks one-on-one, or if they're a family unit or a couple or something like that. It's our job to figure out how to help navigate them through the system. What puzzle pieces are, that's what it is, that's a giant puzzle. Sometimes we have some of the parts and we gotta figure out how we connect those certain parts together, or sometimes we have nothing and we start from that one first piece. And so, over the course of a year, that's when, we try to figure out how we help connect people and get more of those puzzle pieces together. So some of those puzzle pieces are certain documentation, something from as simple as an ID, like that is necessary for most housing matches. And folks living on the street don't typically have a mailbox, or it's hard to have some kind of mailing address. So when they're with us, now we have a spot we can get all their stuff sent to us. Social security cards, birth certificates, and then even like income. Some folks don't know who to touch base with if they might have a disability, or if they're older, they don't know what benefits are allowed to them. So we work with partnering agencies, Homeless Action Center specifically, to help figure that part of the equation out, and because that's a huge one. And so other parts of that puzzle are connecting people to get access to their medical benefits that they may not know that they have, or if they don't, then starting from the beginning again, working with other partnering agencies to help get those connections made. So another one of my favorite parts about Dorothy Day House, and then specifically running this seasonal winter shelter, and I've heard this so many times from folks that we've worked with, is that program or this organization has changed their mind of what like a shelter can be. I've heard so many, almost horror stories of folks staying in previous shelters that they've been burnt down on it. They've stayed at places that were run like prisons, or constant fighting and all kinds of stuff going on within the shelter, where they just literally would choose to stay outside than be in an atmosphere like that. And that's saying a lot. So, we've gotten folks come to us in the winter shelter that towards the end of the season, we've completely changed their mind. So we've helped some folks move on to our main shelter and kind of finish their journey. And so that's the other part of the job that it means the world to me, to be able to change someone's mind or their opinion of what someone or an organization or shelter can do for them.
The way that I see the caring and loving translate to participants is that after a while, they may come in kind of hard. They're expecting us not to provide the service that we're getting paid for. That's what they're expecting from us. They come in, maybe they're upset, maybe they don't treat us well in the beginning. But after they begin to utilize our services and they see for themselves how they're going to be treated, what it is that we're willing to do, how we will go the extra mile. Not to say that we will tolerate disrespect or any of those things, but we're going to have a higher level of flexibility and patience with you while you transition into understanding how we do things. Because if you just come from somewhere else where it was a little bit harder and you're expecting that from us, you need a transition period. You need a respite period to be able to see what it is that we will do for you. And once you see that, then you begin to treat us differently. You begin to be protective of our work, protective of our spaces, respectful of our environments. Even when you are experiencing mental health, even when you are a user of substances, you still practice to be softer with us because that is the way that we've been with you. And that's the difference that I see.
But for the most part, 95% of the time, we are consistent in how we treat people. And it's very simple. It's what Dorothy Day herself said. Love is the answer. She had a very simplistic approach to treat how you treat people. And we emulate that. And now it's very rare that we have any sort of problems whatsoever at the center. And in fact, as I left today for this interview, there were 4 people in there into the Berkeley Community Resource Center who come and get breakfast and take showers, who were putting together our Christmas tree. Nobody asked them to do that. They want to do that. That is an indication, that is success in my book. And success is not measured, as I said earlier, in outcomes. It's measured in how we make people feel and how they reciprocate back. Dorothy Day House is a volunteer and donation-driven agency, but it's also an agency that relies heavily on partnership. Berkeley has an amazing group of community-based organizations that do great work. And they all have a special uniqueness about them in the services that they deliver. Dorothy Day House has a service calendar. And in our service calendar, we reach out to our partners in mental health, in healthcare, in addiction services, income, all these different avenues that are extremely important to the person we serve. As they're waiting for their housing with us, and we're taking care of their basic daily needs, such as food and laundry and clothing, we are also connecting them with the partner agencies. Now here's the difference. We don't give them a BART ticket or a bus ticket and say, you have an appointment with this organization, they can help you. We don't do that. What we do is we have our service calendar and we invite our partners to come to Dorothy Day House. That is a strong difference. Not only does it ensure that there's no break in the connection, but when the service partner comes in, other people are able to raise their hand and say, I need that service too. And then we're not helping one person, but we're helping 5 or more people. And the whole, and not only does it create the service connection, but it shows the community once again that Dorothy Day will come through for them. But they have to raise their hand. They have to let us know what their needs are so that we can make those connections possible. Berkeley's amazing. The moment I came here, I knew it was amazing. I knew it had something special. And I knew that each individual that I worked with in these partner organizations were very passionate about their work. My question is there enough passion in your work, that you can lend a little passion in mine. And if we're able to do that, then we could work together. I almost see it like all of our partners are one organization, right? One organization, and we all have different roles and tasks to meet the needs of our organization. I think that's a lovely idea, to think that Berkeley as one organization. And I'll tell you, from the day I came here to today, I've seen a huge change. Not that they weren't before, but now I think with COVID and all these other external factors, I think Berkeley has taken a major step in relying on each other, and we like it, and we're doing it really, really well.
Yeah, well, partnering with Dorothy Day House is simply a delight. You could not find an organization between them and Inside Housing that thinks more holistically about the people they're serving. They're starting a clothing closet, I don't know if you know this, for homeless individuals to receive clothing so they can go to job interviews, et cetera. They think about every problem that confronts someone, and they try to solve it. Both of those organizations are just amazing.
We became one of the leading organizations that would accept clothing donations, even before COVID, but certainly when COVID hit, we were the only agency in Berkeley that accepted donations. So people would call us from all over, having tried many organizations maybe before us, and found that Dorothy Day was indeed accepting clothing donations. And we knew that every piece of clothing that was given to us with intentions that were pure and so wonderful and given with love, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing right by them. So we had the idea, well, what if we got an off-site location that could manage the enormous amount of clothing, and what if we took it a step further and we created a program based on the giving the beautiful hearts of the community in giving these wonderful pieces of clothing. That led into, well, what if we not only accepted these wonderful gifts and we created this great program, but what if we got the partners involved? That's when I reached out to the partners and I asked for a roundtable meeting, which everybody obliged. And I asked them, A, their opinion, B, would they participate, because it would the program piece of it would rely on them accepting the Dorothy dollars that they would give to their participants, and having to maybe put in some information to make this whole thing work. It was unanimous. The partners loved the idea because they were calling us, here and there, actually was getting quite often, do you have some shoes? Do you have some jackets? Do you have some socks? And we had them all. So this was an opportunity for everybody. Then we started even taking it a step further, and we developed a partnership with Rebuilding Together, East Bay North, who's a wonderful nonprofit in Berkeley, and to really make this closet a place where not only the unsheltered community or sheltered community, you don't have to be homeless to come to the Dorothy's Closet and get help. So not only would it help the community as a whole, it would help Berkeley, it would help our community partners, and it would help Dorothy Day House. Dorothy Day House, it's really important for us to find ways to be self-sufficient to some degree. We're always going to need our individual donors. We're always going to need grants, and we're always going to need the City of Berkeley support. But how could we help ourselves? That's really important to us. So we reached out to the City of Berkeley, and we explained our situation and how important it was for us to continue accepting donations, but we simply had nowhere to put them. Really not to my surprise, because the City of Berkeley is an amazing city. And when they can, they do what they can. And I really appreciate that. I've worked with many cities in the past, and the City of Berkeley is by far one of the best. And they were able to secure us a spot, and it's centrally located on the corner of Channing and Telegraph. We have wonderful neighbors. We reached out to the TBID, the Telegraph Business Improvement District, to let them know what our intention was. They welcomed the idea with open arms. And that's part of how we do business too, right? Is to let our neighbors know who we are, what we're about, what our intentions are, because everything we do affects everybody else, and we know that. And we want to take accountability and responsibility for that. And we want to be transparent, right? And so we are now, it's amazing, through our volunteers and our partners, we have put together an amazing store, Dorothy's Closet. It's gorgeous. And you know, as I said, everything that we do at Dorothy Day House benefits another program or another services that we do. This, for a small agency, increases the support that we get, that we're able to give to everybody that we serve.
Kind of working at the different programs, and especially, I mean, even just these last 6 months working at the main shelter, I feel that I've been answering calls left and right about folks, how can I donate? What can I give? What do you guys need? What's the how, where, when can I do it? And so that just shows me that the community is more aware that there's human beings out here just trying to survive and live. And now we can kind of help connect them to the community, maybe not directly sitting in front of someone, but providing things for our neighbors, for our unhoused neighbors.